what Duo is about and why we love it so much. And we'll give examples of how we compare, examples of how to make Duo creative, because having two people doing a presentation is much more than just like 1 and 1. I think it multiplies exponentially. It's at least 4, because not only do you have 2 individual speakers, but you can create all sorts of different realities when you have a second person, because that can help set the scene. The partners can be an object, another person, an animal, or just really anything, and you can open it up and use the same interpretive skills to do 10 times as much.
Absolutely. And that is one of the funnest things about Duo interpretation, or just Duo speaking in general, is having that extra person. And we always used to say that this is the only interpretation where you get to have a prop. Because you have that other person, like Adam was saying, and you can do anything you want. If you need them to be a wall in a Midsummer's Night's Dream. Midsummer's Night's Dream.
Pure Shakes.
Yeah.
Wonderful play.
Pure Shakes, I like that guy. The bard himself. And you can have the person be absolutely anything you want them to be. And so there is an incredible value in that. And there's a huge creative opportunity that I think a lot of people do not take the most advantage of.
Yeah, so I've seen people be a tree that, like, it's a children's story, and one of the children like picks a piece of fruit off the tree. You can also do sound effects and all sorts of things. I did a Duo interpretation in 2007 where, not a good piece of fruit. Well, that had a depiction. It was a depiction. It's called "The Day I Was Crucified," and it was a depiction of what was leading up to the crucifixion. But it was it's fictional piece because it took a look at the spiritual realm. So while Jesus is on the cross, he interacts with the characters of sin and death and the world system. And it's an interesting perspective, because I never really considered what was going on spiritually before. But what we were able to do, because it was a duo, was when these more menacing characters came out, one of us would be behind the other, and we would both say the line. And so it sounds like, and this one would say it really loud and almost like a deep, deep something, so that it sounded like in the auditorium there were voices everywhere. And that was kind of the feel we were going for. And you can't do that by yourself. And you can't have one person talking and there be music in the background by yourself. And you can't have 2 different conversations going on at once by yourself. So really, a lot of the effects that we see in films, you're kind of able to create with just 2 people and just vocally, or effects physically too. I mean, whether it's someone who you want to show looking at themselves in the mirror. We need to work on our mirror, don't we?
Yeah.
But, and what I love about Duo is that you're working with somebody else, and you have to work with somebody else in order for your piece to be effective. And so I like that a lot.
Which in some cases, depending on your Duo partner, can be a huge boost to the energy of the piece and just the creativity of the piece. Or like with the partner I had, we had a lot of fun creating our piece, but we definitely spent more time having fun than creating our piece.
Him and his best friend did a duo. And
yeah.
Where'd you all just come back from? You've been gone for several hours. Were you working on Duo?
No, we just biked down to the waterfront and played on the playground and recited our lines once.
And like, we were at the skate park, and then we decided it'd be really cool to search through the sewer system. And like, okay, well, cool.
Is your Duo done yet?
Yeah, we're leaving tonight.
Yeah. So, and the outline for this I think should be up online if it's not yet. We'll be getting there eventually.
Yeah.
But
so we'll outline some of the things that you could fill in terms of bullet points.
And yeah, kind of what we were saying is that Duo type. Well, no. Another point is that the kind of Duo you pick, the kind of story you pick, or the kind of story you want to tell, is going to affect how you block the story. And blocking is
any physical actions, that has to do with blocks in your presentation. Not really. It's anything you do physically, and I mean, several of you are probably familiar with the term blocking. In stage, if you're doing a play, the blocking is anything that's not the lines, anything you're doing physically, and where you're supposed to stand, how you're supposed to move, etc. And for a piece that's going to be stronger, the more synchronization there is, blocking is very, very key.
But depending on the type of piece, again, you have, whether it's a really fun kid story, like my friend and I did Peter Pan our second year, and so we were able to kind of just take it and fly with it, literally. I get it. Because I'm not going to explain it. Anyway, and that it was a very creative piece, and we had pretty much any sort of freedom with the blocking we wanted. We blocked a porthole in the ship, in the pirate ship. We blocked the window that.
Let's show some of that. Tell me what we're supposed to do.
You're the window. I'm the window. Was I down? And yeah, you're down right up here, a little farther. Just yeah, you can do one. And so like that. And so we had a window, and at the very end of the piece, well, actually at the very beginning and the very end, it was sort of the motif of the story of Peter Pan coming in the window. And so he would fly down, and he would jump. Wow, that just happened.
Window.
Okay. And that, yeah, I started remembering right at the last minute what happened. And it is a very difficult. You can stand up. It is a very difficult piece of blocking because if you mess up, it's really unfortunate. And Peter Pan somersaulted in the window. And so it was things like that that are able to kind of push it to the next level because, well, I was the window actually in the piece, so I was down here narrating the part where Peter flew in, and my partner would jump through my arm through the window, and it would kind of add that other dimension to the piece. And then we earlier did the porthole in the ship, and like one of us would peer through the porthole, and just all sorts of different things.
Yeah, I remember we peered around each other in my 2006. What we did? We did The Princess Bride back then. That was fun. I think some of the rules changed since then because if I remember correctly, the script wasn't quite. It was the script from the book, The Princess Bride, and a lot of creativity. I don't remember William Goldman writing in a beatboxing element.
The sword fight.
Yeah, it's the sword fight. So,
but it is things like that, and kind of adding that other dimension, and just kind of letting your creativity flow through it for things like that. But of course, with a piece like Peter Pan, or maybe even The Princess Bride, that are a little more fantastic.
Kind of animated.
You can be more animated. And you have that sort of liberty, whereas our first year, we did The Importance of Being Earnest, which, there isn't any flying through windows or intense sword fighting scenes. And so the kind of blocking you do and the way you act out your characters is going to be completely different, especially with British satire.
Yeah, it's a lot. When they said they were going to do The Importance of Being Earnest, which is a pretty hilarious play, I was like, great. That's not going to do super well as a duo. I mean, it's funny, but you're just standing there the whole time. And if there's anything you don't want to do, in my personal opinion, is stand there the whole time. And I mean, probably the most exciting action that happens in the piece is when you eat the cucumber sandwich. And so, I mean, I didn't really think there was a whole lot that they were gonna be able to work with it. But they made it as active as Peter Pan. They just, bless you, they just had to make the characters had to be more down to earth. But they were still able to do a lot of creative things.
And we'll kind of come to that a little later with the types of synchronization that we did were very different. Whereas in Peter Pan, we might synchronize a flying scene where it's like one behind the other, and you're just kind of going up and down, or you're like swooping around each other and doing all sorts of different things. It's going to be that.
Oh, wrong movie. Sorry.
So was that Casey at the Bat? It's going to be completely different depending on the type of piece you pick. So kind of always when you're selecting the piece, think ahead to what kind of blocking you want to be able to do, what kind of liberties you want to have. Even though we did Importance of Being Earnest, which was a much more down-to-earth kind of piece, and we didn't have all the creative liberties that we did with Peter Pan, you can still do quite a lot with it. And so just keep that in mind when selecting a piece.
And that's the neat part about interpretation, is that you don't have to take this piece of literature and do it exactly how you think the author would have done it. You're going to take Dickens' words, and you're going to, how would Dickens have done it? Never mind. You're going to take his words, and you can even add another element of emotion that may not have been initially intended. It just depends, because you're already I mean, with a lot of pieces, it's not a 10-minute or 7-minute speech. You're going to cut something that's several chapters down to 7 minutes, or just depending on the community platform. Could be 5, 3.
And it really depends. And then again, always selecting a piece of literature, selecting a story that you do want to tell. It doesn't matter what audience it's going to, whether it could be presenting it at a library or another community platform.
That for me is, I guess, another important thing is a story that connects with the presenter. Like, what story do they want to tell? And because we've had a few friends who have done pieces that it's like, oh, well, this will win, but they just didn't really like the piece. And so obviously it's some give and take. I mean, when we're learning, ultimately it's not like, I love this, and really, if you're going to be more effective, you're going to have to practice at times you don't want to. So it's not just about what you want to do, but it is good to have something that potentially they could both enjoy, or at least both kind of have, I see where this could go, or think it has some potential.
Which is kind of how my friend and I pulled through in our duo, because both of us being what we are, we don't like practicing all the time, and especially at midnight the day before the tournament in the hotel when Adam's like, okay guys, time to practice your speeches, and we're just like,
look, I just did a wheelie on my bicycle.
Hey, we're gonna go get ice in the hallway now,
Yeah.
But because it was something that we both loved and we're both passionate about and both really wanted to do, it kind of pushed us both to be better and to work together better, to work together harder on it. Which, of course, there are always things that you don't want to do. Like do the speech that one more time, or go up on that one more platform. But I always said, if there's something you don't want to do, it doesn't have to be a speech. Because you can always find a speech that you do want to do. There's always something that the presenter cares about. And sometimes that's the hardest thing to find out.
What you care about?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying that a step in the process of getting somewhere is not just like searching for literature, but asking questions like, so what are some things that I'm interested in, or
Absolutely.
I might like to tell about?
So kind of even just taking a step back from the whole interpretation, the whole process, and just figuring out with the students what they actually care about, what they want to do with communication, where they would like to speak, people they would like to interact with and connect with, and how they would like to do that, and what things they would like to talk about. And so you can always find a speech that you do care about. And so you don't ever need to do a speech that you don't, unless you're doing limited practice. That's another story.
What? Okay, well, now a few more specifics of just different ways that I just really think that duo is about getting out of the box. So to do a piece where it's just standing still is kind of a tragedy. I mean, not really. I mean, my first duo was, and my first interps were. So, I mean, it's a process. But the more you, is that the box? That's the box. Oh, trying to open the box. Okay, well, while we're getting out of the box, I think that it's really important to give some ideas of how we can, for instance, do things where we're not standing next to each other, where we can make synchronization that basically opens up the audience's imagination. Because once again, I mean, unless you're a ventriloquist, which you can't do, then there's only so much you can do. But with two people, I mean, there's really almost no limitations. Now let's see. Wait, you're getting in the box.
Yeah, now you have to help me get out of it.
Well, that was easy. Okay, glad we got out of the box. So, Tim, did you want to make this next point about space?
Yes, and now when you're thinking about a presentation and you're thinking about trying to be synchronized, how difficult is it for you to focus on both of us at the same time when we're trying to do something? Now, let's think that we're both, hey, look at that star over there. Do you see that? That one? Yeah, well, and then there's that one over there. Wait, but I really like that one, dead ahead.
I like the one down there.
Where?
Yeah, right there. It's a light, actually.
Okay.
Sorry.
And the thing is that proximity equals energy in a piece. The closer you are, the more intense it is, and the more on edge the audience is going to be. Now, if Adam had been down there with the window, oh, I'm down there again? You're down there again. Okay. And I'd come around to jump through the window. that's not very impressive. It's the very fact that we're this close. We're going to do it again. Okay. It's the very fact that we're that close, inches away from certain disaster. And when you pull through, or even when you're thinking about synchronized movements, and you see that star over there, or to the right. Yeah, it's that one. Over there. What about the one down? You know, and so we'll practice that.
Yes,
so
we'll work on it.
But it's the very fact that we're that much closer together. The same as with a sword fight. If we were trying to fight this far apart, and we're going, and we're even just going back and forth, so, whoo. Yeah, so, oops, that's not in the script.
That's not in the script.
Okay. So that was a little far apart, so let's put us a little bit closer. Okay, so in The Princess Bride, we did a short sword fight, and so this is a little, we haven't practiced this, so we'll give an example of how we might practice. Well, actually, what my partner and I did, yeah, this would be a sub point. To make things look realistic, practice with the real objects. So if that's opening a door, and we said earlier, I mean, I could just go through a door, or Tim be a door. You know, I could, if I need to, you know, go through Tim, slam. Then, you know, that's something you can do in duo. And to do this sword fight, first we had to find something that was the right width in our hands, and we didn't have swords. And then we had to find
a sword like this. I've seen a lot of people do it.
Yeah.
It's not a sword. That's a
Dagger.
straw.
That's a straw.
Or popsicle.
Yeah,
Not
popsicle.
like popsicles.
You know? That'd be fascinating.
Would it?
Finding a popsicle, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to try that. But
Okay, that was sick. So, first we needed something that looked real, and then we needed something that, we didn't have something that weighed the right amount, that was the right width. So we practiced that separately, and then we had to practice like, because we were doing sword fights like this, and like a sword can't move that fast, right? Swords are heavy. And so we had to get a real object to make it feel realistic, help it be realistic, help it look realistic. And to practice, we actually practiced facing each other because we needed to know, like, what's our distance? Like, where are you? Because I need to be able to see you. If Tim's a little kid and I'm a big kid,
like in Peter Pan.
like if I'm Captain Hook
And I'm Peter.
then I'm going to be looking down at, boy, or etc. Then that makes a difference. So thinking through who are we actually
Interacting with
Yeah.
in the piece.
and what would it feel like realistically. So when I did Princess Bride and someone had to practice being a giant, we practiced with him standing on the bed so that we could actually visualize. Actually start to visualize. Okay, so we're going to visualize this sword fight. Okay, let's say, so you're going to come first, okay, and then I'm going to come back. Oh,
Oh wait, we're not blocking the
that's fine.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, try it again. Okay, so I'm going to come back, and then you lunge. And I'm going to hit your sword down, okay? And I'm going to sweep like that, and then you come down. Okay, so now let's make that a duo.
Okay, so you're sweeping.
Okay. Is this going to work? I don't know.
Let's try.
Okay, now we're closer together, a little more intensity. Okay, so, ching, 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 ching. Oh, we're on the wrong side. Switch. Okay, so those are the things you figure out. I am not left-handed. I am not left-handed. Perfect. All right, so here we go. Ching, chang. I thought you were doing chang. Okay.
Oh. We'll both do both. How about that?
Okay, here we go.
Okay,
and ching, chang, ching, chang, swoosh, and clang. A little early on that jump. It was predictable. So it's ching, chang, swoosh, swoosh. Yeah, the third. You got to do a bigger lunge. You got to just get out there. Just got to get out there with that lunge. Oh, ching, chang. It's. I don't remember. I guess it's ching chang, because you lunge and I'm gonna hit your sword down immediately. Okay, it's gonna be ching chang. Swoosh. I gotta do the swoosh faster.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. One more time. Practice when you don't want to, like in front of coaches. Okay, and ching chang, ching chang, swoosh clang. That was closer. That was closer. Yes.
So, when you're doing it with the NCFCA, you didn't touch, but it seems like now the duos, we're
Now
allowed
we
to
can.
look at each other and
Yeah.
interact. So that seems to be more like the NCFCA style, right?
And well,
Or
yes,
you
and we
could-
did
you
that
could
would
do
have been
either way, I guess.
that would have been performed in the NCFCA,
it's a very short distance between, for the crossover, because I think here, both could be
Would work,
appropriate.
right.
Right, and so, in another duo, let's see, was it?
But now we can interact, and we can touch, and we can look at each other.
Which
here,
is true.
right?
Yeah, and I was just saying, like, so when a duo, when when there's a character who is squeezing another character, we were talking about distance, like I could squeeze him right here, or I could squeeze him right here, and formally I wasn't touching him. Like, if it's me and my brother doing a duo, then if I'm gonna creep up over his shoulder, then now I can touch him, right? So that's what I mean when I say it's a short distance between what we did those other duos in and here, because formerly it was this, and it's about an inch difference. I mean, I guess kind of.
Though the thing is that the focus, especially on a large platform or even on a small platform, with the audience so far spread around, because they aren't necessarily going to be just in front of you, even still allowing for that distance, though this isn't necessarily the most realistic, or him even looking directly in my eyes, but him actually like looking past me, they can still understand what's going on, as well as maybe more of the audience can perceive it, as well as panning it outwards from this, which would be the normal sword fight.
Right. Well, and so if I can,
Yeah, go for it.
why I think that matters is, in former leagues that I competed in, because we competed in university too, there are a few different constraints, and I think it's a problem when those constraints, like we try to stick to them without understanding why, and the whole reason to open it up is not, well, here's a rule, but you want to make sure that you're able to bring in all your audience all around. So, while that rule doesn't exist here, I'm not saying we do it the same way as somewhere where there is that rule. I am saying that let's remember that we want to bring everybody in. So, what does more for the piece? And I did see, we did the showcase, I watched the showcase here last year, and there's some really good touching, man, if we were doing some silly story with a knight and somebody, like, it'd be fun if he sat on my knee and things like that. I think that'd be like, okay, so if you sit, we're talking, interesting. Then
I'm not supposed to be sitting on a knight's knee.
that's a good point, isn't it? Well, you could be my son. All right, sonny boy, younger son. Oh gosh. But we're still open, right? So here touching, like, I think it adds a lot more to it, and we're still open to the audience. Whereas, like, we won't have a piece of dialogue right here, because our lines are going to be going straight into each other's faces instead of out to the audience. And so, we didn't talk about frames.
No, sorry, that's what I was trying to get to.
So I'd say we'll just show it and then we'll explain it. So instead of this, where we're both facing each other, so the frames are straight, we're going to break the frames down the middle. In duo, you normally turn them out. So instead of like this, we're talking like this, right? So now the frames are out. Well, we'll cross the frames so that we still get this feeling of intensity and closeness. I'm talking him right in his face, but now we're open to almost the whole audience, and we're able to both engage each other and engage them. Does that make sense?
And yeah, that's kind of the idea of when you might want to touch and when you might not want to touch, because sometimes touching can make the frame come back in and almost close you off too much. And whereas if you break the frame and pan it out a little bit, then you can still have the interaction, but it also opens you up against the audience, as well as adds that other dimension of difficulty. Because it's really difficult to shake hands without touching someone, and maybe adds that other level of difficulty once again that makes a piece much more entertaining and interesting and draws in the audience more, as opposed to shutting them out with just a normal handshake.
Oh, are we shaking?
We don't know.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, so it's just that thought. Think about it. If there aren't those constraints, then sometimes, once again, they aren't necessarily constraints or just rules that are there for no reason, but to help you better impart the piece to the audience.
And I would say that there are really almost no rules. I mean, really, in most leagues I've competed, there's, like, even if there's a few rules, this is all theory we're explaining. This is breaking frames, doing this. I mean, that's still technically theory. So we could like the whole star thing, like what we did here was we took our frames or however they are and we overlapped them here. Or maybe you can overlap your frames like this. And so like that would be a point at which like we're like talking right past each other to each other or something like that. It's all theory though. So you can this kind of explaining the frames helps to think through it. But ultimately you got to say, well, does this make sense to those who are watching? Like, can they see what's going on? Because most of that is, I mean, there's almost no limitations. One reason I'd say, because I think with the ICCFS there's flexibility. Like if we wanted to do Pilgrim's Progress and there's giant despair, it'd be really hard if we were doing it where we can touch and we're just being like man to man, we're both almost 6 feet tall or whatever, and we're right here talking. Well, it's going to be kind of hard to convince the one of us is a giant, and so you'll want to break the frames and make you say that you're like 100 feet tall. So I'm like way down. He's way up there, and if you like scoop me up, then you have this freedom that you didn't have before because you break the frame. So it's kind of it's all tools. You just so it's all tools. It's all tools for creative expression.
And so almost thinking on that level of different planes can be helpful.
Question here, any questions?
Yeah. I'm just wondering, how would you explain frames to students? Like, what would be the best way to explain how to perceive that?
With Legos or dolls or something.
or even, I mean,
well,
out of the box, but even imagining that each person is their own box. Like, I am my own little box piece, and so you can take the pieces
and you know what?
and face in different ways or
I
stack.
would, yeah, if you had a doll or something and then put an arrow, like put their feet on an arrow so that you see what they're facing forward is. Because then, so if my hands are arrows, then you have the arrows facing towards each other in real life, and you have both arrows facing forward towards the audience, and you have the arrows crossing. An arrow in our minds, the way we've learned the symbol, kind of creates an imaginary plane wherever it's pointing. So I think that would help.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm just wondering, I know the students who have come here and have seen some of the more seasoned students love the humor in the zoo, and they want to replicate it, but are there exercises or things that we as coaches can guide them to release those creative juices? And it's
Oh.
probably in them, but we need to
Yeah.
bring it out.
Well, that's good. That's good. We activities that we're kind of covering a lot of ground because we're both talking about not just do it, but we're also talking about blocking. And so for interp in general, whether it's single or multiple of these types of presentations, there's group activities that are really fun. Some that we've done some years ago. What's the party one?
Oh, I think it's called party favors or something like that.
Party.
Flavors? I don't know. It was, yeah.
Party.
Or
It's called party.
It's the party game.
Party guests. And,
party guests,
and you
okay.
have someone, you have the
the
host go out of the room, and then you have the 5 characters or 4 characters up here, and they all have to, the group of kids in the room decide what characters they're going to be. And they shouldn't be too difficult, but also not too simple. And then they have to act out those characters. That's a fun one. You can make it more specific, where maybe they have to act out those characters without talking. I mean, no talking, but they have to communicate a certain emotion and a certain, what's the word, occupation or something like that.
And like there are some hard, like you can make it harder, you can make it really easy. There were some that we used to do with the older students that was like one of the hard ones was the door-to-door salesman with PTSD. You know?
Okay,
and so he was always like trying to sell you something and he'd just dive for cover. Just like, hit the dirt, you know? And everyone was like, what on earth is going on? Or
I remember Wendell being a narcoleptic base jumper. So he'd be about to take a big, and then just kind of, that was funny because like, I think Joe Rose had to catch him every time.
But and so things like that, as well as there's another one that could help them. I think it's called painting a barn with a fish that I was just introduced to.
I haven't heard of that.
And basically, the students can kind of get in the line or however you we want to do it, and they start on one end of the room, and it's kind of in the same way. It's like you have to get from here to there, the other side of the room, as this character. And one of the favorites was always as a person trying to paint a barn with a fish. And so, you know, it's like I got a fish, and it's like, you know, and then you're trying to like paint the barn with it, and it keeps getting away, and you have to get all the way to the other side of the room as that character.
Wow, that's good.
And
do,
so-
do people? So everyone. Oh.
And so, and I think it's usually just, and that might be a little bit easier for the coach to facilitate, since you could just tell each student, and then kind of the other students are trying to guess what's going on and how you're trying to get across. Whereas the party guess,
Oh.
all the students are kind of
And if you have a
choosing.
whole room, what we did is we would we would divide you all up into 3 groups, and one at a time we would take one of the groups into the hall and say, here's, you know, what sort of scene, or here's the scene, and it'd be something like, you know, you're on a pirate ship, and they'd have to create one cohesive scene, and each be a character in that scene. So each of the pirates would have to be doing something different that is piratey, and so the watchers would have to figure out the scene, figure out the what each one's doing, like who is each one in the scene, etc. Those are good group ones. Now, to work with specific people, a good exercise, this is a good exercise, is to practice the piece. This is a good exercise with anything, actually. I'm writing a screenplay right now, and I need to do this exercise in my writing. But if they're doing a duo, whether it's serious or funny, they need to practice it once, as over the top, exaggerated, and ridiculous as possible. And they also need to practice the opposite, like as little movement and as little expression as possible. Because you're trying to find that medium where, I mean, I know for me, when I first started doing, you know, these interpretations of literature, I mean, if I was being crazy, I was being crazy. But as you practice those different variations, and you can practice it with, if they're doing a duo with just 2 characters, then maybe they can practice it with another piece that they have to do different characters. Like the more you experience, the more you'll get a feel for it. It's sort of like, sorry, I'm not finishing my sentence. It's like, I mean, it's like cooking knives in the kitchen or something, like going from really small one to really big one, right? Or something that's not sharp. But if you, like if it gets wider and wider in your hand, you know, pretty soon if they use all of them, they'll be able to close their eyes, you put one in their hand, you'll be like, oh yeah, this is this one. It's sort of like that with characters. Once they've done this really, really big one, like, oh yeah, this is crazy. And then it's like, oh, this one's just crazy. Oh, this one's pretty funny, but he's pretty dry. Oh, this one's really serious and kind of, oh, this one's boring. This guy's just bored. So it's giving them exercises to, I'd say for specific like teams or people, if you want to bring out certain things, practice these different variations so that they don't know how it feels. So besides helping any activities that help them feel it, they also need they also need to see it. So working in the mirror is how we practice facial expressions, even some doer interaction initially, and videotaping. I mean, videotaping is the most effective, and actually that's all the way to debate. So effective for debaters too, because you can tell them a million times, like, stop doing this thing with your, you know, once they watch themselves, they're like, oh, I look so dumb. Oh no. I mean, most people do not want to watch it. They don't want anyone else to watch it. But we need to do that to understand, oh, that's what I look like. So once they know how it feels, they can correspond that with how it looks, and that really helps.
Well, you know, it seems like, at least when you're doing something funny, the exaggeration really helps. Do you still want to do exaggeration on a more serious piece to get the point across, or do you want to, nuance it a little bit?
It depends on the piece and depends on the character. Because even with funny ones, it can be really funny to be really, really exaggerated and then be like, oh, I don't know. You know, go from big to little, but that can be funny. And same thing with serious. Most of it will be character driven. Wow, I just threw out that term. We'll talk about characters. Yeah, but if the piece allows it, like The Day I Was Crucified, we're playing these kind of supernatural, extraordinary characters, you can be a little more. But they have to decide, how real do we want this to be? You know, how real are we going for? I did a piece this last semester with my friend Jake called Dominic and Eugene, and it's from a movie that's, the story, I don't recommend the movie, but we did this 10-minute cutting of the movie that's really powerful because it's about two brothers, one who's younger and one who's older, and the elder is actually mentally retarded, and apparently because of a fall, and the story goes on. This one's a doctor, and he's trying to get through medical school, but has to go away to finish, and he doesn't know how to leave his brother, who's taking care of him. His brother's working at the store, making money so that he can go to medical school, and we were like, well, we don't. Jake had done several pieces. He'd done Roses for Algernon, I think, which is another one with a mentally retarded young man, which is just so beautiful, so good. But that one was a lot more.
Yeah, the comparison was that in Roses for Algernon, the character continued to deteriorate and was incredibly, very low functioning
As part of the story.
Whereas in the Dominic and Eugene,
It's almost like you couldn't tell until the story went on. But at the beginning of the year, it was more. He was doing it more exaggerated, and we were getting feedback like, well, not only are you changing from not exaggerated to exaggerated, and it's kind of weird, but so you're not. It doesn't seem consistent, and some judges were like, that's not how people act like that. With that, some people were upset, and so trying to find what was the most effective way to communicate it. Just to finish the story, it turns out that they have an argument at the end, and the younger brother almost hits him, and it comes out that the reason Eugene is he's not really he's just slow. He's kind of he something happened, and so he grew slower. He his mind that he's kind of he understands, but it's kind of a little slower. He had protected his younger brother from their father, who was very violent and had gotten hit so much by the father. But the story ends with the understanding between the brothers that they're always going to be looking out for each other, and they're both in the story they're both sacrificing, but you don't see it, and you kind of see it at the end. But it was challenging to
almost find the realism in the piece.
Because the movie made it too complicated. It's hard to cut.
Yeah, well, that helps understand that. Changing the subject, our students do a lot of, at least the younger ones, animal stories, Dr. Seuss type things. Any hints, tips on best way to portray animals?
In duos, that can be incredibly interesting. Something that I wish I had gotten into, because I thought of it like
Yeah, can you do two persons making one animal?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was thinking of that as one.
I've seen. I don't remember. We did an elephant, and one person was the ears, and
one
someone
person
was
the
the
trunk.
trunk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other person was the trunk.
What about-
one person? It could have been like the Joey in the kangaroo pouch. One was the Joey, one was the kangaroo. But even just, especially for Dr. Seuss and really crazy things, something I thought about is differentiating characters and even creating voices by the way you place your hands on your face. Because suddenly I look different, and I also talk different, but I'm not even meaning to, just by doing this.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's just something that I thought of, and I'm like, I wish I had done that in Dr. Seuss or something. So even just little crazy
to try,
things,
yeah.
And getting outside of the box with, whatever it is, to make a character, you can do incredibly weird and interesting things.
Yeah.
And also the interaction with if you want a rabbit or something.
My rabbit.
You can be a rabbit, whatever you want to be, or, an elk or a moose, whatever it is, and you can do character interaction for that. And I know one team did it kind of along the same lines of combining. One team did Jabba the Hutt.
Jabba the Hutt?
In a Star Wars piece.
What?
Yeah.
How do they do that?
One of them, one was in front like this.
And one was the tail?
And one was like this.
So it's just like really, yeah, just like incredibly, just like bouncy and large, and that's what they're trying to simulate. Let's draw the hop, you know. And every time they'd say that, they'd like bounce. You could just feel it. You're like, oh, that's awful. You know,
it's a bad
guy.
guy.
And so just another idea of how they would work together to create one character. And some people would do that with giants and just like make a giant twice as large. Oh yeah, we did that in Pilgrim's Progress, where we had giant despair. You stand in front because it was me and Grace Mullaney and I did her younger sister toured with Tim, and she toured with me. We did one in 2008 where like he had a club and he hit it like this and then he hit it like this. And I don't remember how we did it, but it was we had two hands to make them really big, and to do that again, and like we'd go like this and this or something, but yeah, make it bigger. So good activity would be put people in pairs of two and say, hey, all of you figure out, or like say you have 3 pairs of two, get them all to figure out how to do a giraffe and try to get a creative way, and let's see how creative they can get with these different things. And help them get out of the box. So you don't just have to use, 2 hands. And remember, you have all your arms and legs and your face, and and you don't just have to move your face with your face. So those are some pointers, and then just see where they can go with it, and try different creatures. And sometimes to make it fun, you could even put in 3 people, or just to see, like how would it'd be fun for 2 people to try and make an octopus. That'd be fun. And even give them 10 lines of script to do with it and see how they decide to move with it. That'd be fun. I want to do that. Let's do that right now.
Yeah. I kind of want to jump back because there are a couple of other little things that we wanted to get through.
Yeah.
One was we never really finished the proximity equals energy, but basically it's just that getting close will help with high energy, so get close for high energy, and then use distance for low energy or to separate focus. And so at one point during a piece, some people did A Knight's Tale, and for a part where they wanted to just separate the focus, they each went to opposite sides of the stage because they were both kneeling down to pray right before the day of the big battle. But you only wanted to focus on one at a time. Now, you could do the same thing with just one person flipping around and the other person getting down front.
Yeah, they did another time.
And so there are different ways to do it, but they wanted to completely separate the focus and really so you could understand exactly what the characters wanted in that moment. Because one was like actually praying humbly, like just, give me the victory, but if I don't get it, that's all right. And one is just like, just give me the victory and I'm going to win. And you could just really see the juxtaposition of the characters because they were so far apart and you could only focus on one at a time. So you can get very close to add energy and get the energy higher and more intense, and then separate to just disperse the energy. Because if you get far apart, the energy will just die. It'll disappear in a piece the farther apart you get. And that's why getting closer is more difficult, but also adds more energy.
I actually hadn't put those 2 together before. That's really interesting.
That was something Ian and I came up with.
That's cool.
Types of synchronized movements.
Something I did come up with. Okay, actually I didn't. I just did a little bit of it. But there's 3 types of synchronized movement: vocal, physical, and interactive. When we say vocal, it'd be them saying the same thing at the same time. And that's a cool way to show unity of the piece. That's something you can't do in a non-duo. The second thing is physical. It's like where we did the stars, where we're both like moving our right arm to the same place at the same time.
Or the giant.
Or we both jump at the same time. Or we both fly at the same time. That's physical synchronization because we were synchronizing the exact same. Interactive synchronization is where one acts and one reacts. So it's not going to be the exact same, it's going to be opposite. So like the sword fight, or some people I've seen a couple of really incredible dance scenes that have been done. Some people have had it completely panned out and danced like, so some people would, you're going back, you're going forward. Oh, okay. Some people would be completely panned out, and then others would have, they'd have really interesting interactions. They might spin, whatever. And it kind of depends where some, others would have it where they're dancing right next to each other and not looking, and so looking past. Or it doesn't necessarily matter. Once again, you don't necessarily have the restraints, but kind of using that to see how you want to craft the piece. And so that would be interactive, once again, one person acts and the other reacts, like it could be something like a dance, or a sword fight, or an argument, or like handing them, you know, if I wanted to get you back out of my pocket, you know, I would, oh, I can have me? Yeah. Well, thank you. You're welcome. And so those are the three types of synchronization, so vocal, physical, and interactive. I kind of demonstrated those. And then you can also use synchronization, like we kind of hit on it earlier, for emphasis. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that'd be like the vocal synchronization. So, say there's this scene where it's two parents who come in and talking to their kids, either mom or dad. I'll be mom. Okay. I'll be dad. So, what seems to be the trouble, boys? Well, I've been locking myself in this house for some time now, reading and writing, reading and thinking in search of a reason. This is the season, the autumn, the spring, the summer, the snow, the record won't stop, the record won't go. Lash, lash, winter, the down, the dog coming in, the dog going out. Up with caffeine and down with the shot, and constantly worried about what I got. Distracted my work and I can't make it stop my confidence on. My confidence off and I sink to the bottom, my rise on top, and I think to myself, I do this a lot. What about you guys? And that's a really like long thing, so there wasn't a whole lot of emphasis. There's been some where they say certain words together. I think y'all made a joke about it in your intro in the opening program where from the piece that y'all did. What was it? It was during our EP, it was actually from the evening program from the Moses scene in our program where two characters were Kelsey and Josh together were the voice of God. And so together when Moses was like, they interpreted the voice of God. Yes, they were not ICC. Right. So no, sacrilege. No, but and so they interpreted the voice of God together. And so instead of just one saying, "Who has made man's mouth?" for emphasis, together they would say, "Who has made man's mouth?" And in the midst of the other lines that really stood out. So it's like you're creating a landscape with the sound. Like that's what you're able to do when you're able to layer voices. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, when you're cutting and blocking for Duo, for ICC, this was a little bit of confusion for us. Does it have to be the exact words from the book? Because you're talking about taking a section from a movie.
Oh, which one? The Princess Bride?
No, Eugene and
Dominic. Oh, Eugene. In university, it doesn't.
Okay, but
yeah,
for ICC, does it have to be?
I don't know. I believe
actual-
so. I don't know the rules
actual
actually
literature, 'cause
because I
thought
haven't looked into it, but I believe it
think
does.
too.
Yeah, university was the only place that ever competed where you could use. Well, there's prose, there's poetry, and then there was drama. And drama is a script from anything that's not a book or poetry. And so yeah, university, you know, you have that liberty, but I didn't find it anywhere in high
Could
school.
anybody here confirm that? My understanding is it has to be from a book, that you can delete words, but you cannot add words.
Yeah.
The words have to be contained within. Is that accurate?
That's my understanding.
But
Yeah.
you can add layers of sounds and musical effects?
Well, if you're both saying, and basically anything that isn't actual words, I believe you can make any sounds or noises that you want. That's my understanding. There's been leagues that.
It's to enhance.
Yeah, to enhance.
It enhances and it doesn't change the intent of the author.
So you want to be careful with it because there was a duo. I don't know where it was, but there's a duo where someone made a sound effect, but it seemed like a word. You know, it sounded like a word, and so. Yeah, I think it needs to kind of enhance. That's why in Duo, I mean, I would like use it in layers so that while they're interpreting the piece, there's something behind that supporting it. It has like sound or extra. Yeah. Oh, another thing you can do. You can overlap what's in the book. So if there's a conversation in the book, and like, hey. Hi. Good. So what? Or if it's an argument, they might put the lines on top of each other. So they're both saying this thing at the same time, whereas obviously it's not written on top of each other because you can read it. But
I mean, the pages
they're all on top of each other. Not if you put the book sideways. True.
Wait, are you saying you're altering the text? by.
No, not, I'm saying that
Delivery.
you can stay true to the
Compacting it.
text and still, I guess not have to do it dryly, like you can, like, but I'm not saying you can take words from the end and, oh, I really need a width over here, let's put that in there, I wouldn't do that.
Okay, so
But-
you're talking about maybe something that's going on close together in
Mhm.
the text, and you're just merging it even closer?
Yeah.
That doesn't-
Mhm.
okay.
Right. Or maybe two scenes where, like in chapter 1, the guy's thinking about the girl, in chapter 3, the girl's thinking about the guy, but you know, you have them both like having this conversation out the window with themselves. You know, but you're still saying the text, you're still true to the text, but that's a creative way to interweave.
So dreamy.
Sorry, I wasn't in the moment, my bad, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I was over in chapter 3.
Yeah, don't worry about it. I'll get there eventually. I'm still in chapter 1.
So you're saying you can,
Yeah, that
you don't
doesn't
have,
make sense.
so the text doesn't have to be in order?
So see?
Well,
That's where it gets
yeah,
messy.
yeah, it does. I would,
Well, yeah, but there might be a lot of in between that you're not using. That's the whole part of cutting.
Okay.
You're
It's like,
cutting two-
there's only
you're
4
cutting
chapters,
two
and you can only
that
fit
far.
chapter 1 and chapter 3 and chapter
Okay.
4. You know,
Okay.
so that's still, I
Okay.
mean, I'd say that's,
Choosing what
I
you
don't
want.
know exactly what the rule, but I would say if you want to be safe, then you can, oh, hey,
Tell me,
we had some questions about cutting.
tell me.
Well,
Go.
say that,
Answer these questions.
well, she did then we have it.
Yeah.
Like there's,
And of course, if it's, yeah, and I
It
mean,
is
you
a
can always,
text.
yeah.
The whole, I mean, it's not, I think that the problem that we get into is that we start worrying about what are the rules and where, you know.
Where's the line?
We're,
Am I
yeah,
this
we're
close to the
trying to
line?
train them
Am I
not
this close?
to get as close to the line as possible. What we're training them to do is to bring a piece of literature to life, but in the intent of the author. So
Right.
yes, you can cut from chapter 1 to chapter 3, but you're not gonna bounce around, but you can cut out chapter 2 if it doesn't enhance what you're talking about, as
Yeah.
long as it keeps everything.
you're
the
trying to,
intent is out.
Well,
express
thesis,
what it's
right?
expressing.
Thesis, everybody should have a message, an idea, one idea, and lots of literature has lots of different ideas that you could pull or cull from. So your cutting should be motivated by your purpose, which is the first step we have in our process.
You guys have seen a lot of duos, done a lot of duos. Is there, as our students are picking their piece, can a good duo make any piece work, or have you seen some pieces that no matter how good you are, they just don't?
I've seen almost any piece work, really,
Though-
almost any piece.
But I would suggest that a good piece is a great start, because it's significantly easier to make a good piece great than it is to make an all-right piece good.
Understanding that good and great are very relative terms, because they're like the importance of being earnest. I would have said that's not making it semifinals of nationals in ever, because you can't, and it did. And there've been others that I wouldn't have expected, and it's just about the creativity. Now, if there's a piece that's a cutting that doesn't have a story in it, that doesn't go anywhere, I don't mean physically go anywhere, I mean you can have a very,
Well, that's what you were referring to.
yeah, it's something that's, yeah, so there needs to be some substance there. But in terms of it being, in terms of saying, what's the Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment, you know, you're never going to be able to compare The Cat in the Hat to Dostoevsky. Well, Rebecca Lee did. Rebecca Lee was in a final round, and they were both there. And I mean, those are like way, but it's just about what they were able to bring out of it. And I would, yeah. So they got really creative with a little bit of substance.
But the substance has to be there to start with.
In the story, yeah, in
Yeah.
the story.
But-
And sometimes, and I mean, I took a piece, did a humorous piece a long time ago with, I think it was a kid's book on like maybe a 2nd grade reading level. So, you know, 7-word sentences, period, turn the page, another sentence, period, turn the page, you know, it's like the one sentence every page book, and was able to craft a story out of that, even though, you know, maybe the literature wasn't there, like the story, it had a story, but maybe it wasn't written
as well as Dostoevsky, Dickens, or whatever, you know, but you were still able to craft it. And it was, I'm like, this is a great book, and I really like this story. I want to tell it. And so sometimes you can make something great out of something that maybe doesn't have all the polish already, but you do need the story. Like, if there isn't a story, you know, he walks into
So
a
it's
room.
both things that he said, I agree with, yes. Did you have a question?
For dramatic pieces, are you important to being earnest? What it seems like most of our kids are picking Dr. Seuss or lighter or more action things, but some of our older kids, I think, would like to have a challenge. So where could we? What would be ways of doing the duo? But really, we've seen hardly any examples of that here. It's all been kind of more humorous, active things than serious messages. So both of you have done the serious things. How can we incorporate duo into that?
As in where to find, where to look
No,
for,
just like
or-
what kind of actions would you do to really?
Okay, well.
Create a piece, you mean?
Yeah.
Like once you have a piece?
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to have run jumping through the windows and
Right.
things like that.
Again,
Sort
I
of
mean,
things.
again, it goes back to what we said near the beginning, which was who do you want to connect with? Like, what kind of platforms are you intending to do it on? Adam's piece, when they did The Day I Was Crucified, they were able to take it to a lot of churches and kind of community places like that and audiences like that. So it kind of depends, but even just for creating the piece, be like real life. You know, sometimes you think that
Could I jump in there?
Yes.
So, when we did Dominic and Eugene, first scene, they're talking probably in the kitchen in the house. Well, if we're in the kitchen, and I want to interpret the intent of being in the kitchen, well, then one of them is going to be getting cereal out of the cupboard and out of the fridge and making breakfast. One of them is going to be messing around. He's actually gargling in the sink. So he's going to be gargling in the sink. And then they actually realize they're late and have to run around and get the leash, and then he leaves the box on the burner. And then, so we kind of looked at the script and figured out how many times can we run into each other in the middle of this, or just how many times can our paths cross? How many times can we decide to hand something? It doesn't. So the script can communicate, okay, where are we, and then you can create actions that have to do with it.
Because I think sometimes when we see just two people talking in a story, we don't realize all the realism behind that and where they are and what they're doing in a kitchen, you know, getting ready for bed in a bedroom. They're not just sitting there talking to each other, they're doing all of these other things, and you can make a story
Usually we
out
do
of
other
that.
things when we talk in real life.
Except
When we're standing there
Right.
talking. So we got to wrap up. Final thoughts, final questions. Anything final we need to, any last points or?
I think, I mean, the last thing that I would like to emphasize is, again, duo interpretation has nearly endless possibilities, and it's incredibly exciting and fun. And it's also an incredible way to train new students, putting a more experienced student with a younger student and helping them energize them for communication. And that's something that we were able to do in our former teams and chapters, just helping students coming alongside them with a great piece and helping them get more enthusiastic.
And giving younger students an opportunity to put in their ideas as well. And yeah, so it's really fun. I'd say even when it's dramatic, you're still able to find those creative elements and get a lot of movement going on. It's just about making it clear. And videotaping helps with that, and working in front of the mirror, and working with real objects. So, yeah. Thank y'all.